Wow, I don't know, but I think this shit just went live. Again, I never can tell with YouTube. I just never know. But tonight would be a perfect night not to turn the camera on and do that podcast we've been talking about. But I know there would be a ton of pissed off folks out there watching this, knowing what we've got behind the screen right now. Woo, I never would hear the end of it. So I guess I'm not really going to do that to y'all tonight. So how about we do this? For the smoothest transition in the Vape Show game, here we go. Look at that, folks. I swear to God, it is the smoothest transition that anybody that is doing this shit has seen. It's been, yeah, whatever. I'm done. I was trying to make myself sound good, and it just ain't happening right.
Brendan's like, what the hell is he talking about?
Hell yeah. What is going on, folks? It is the True Vapor Show number 277. Yes, 277 episodes. And look at the panel we have here today. We have got Brandon from EVOLV here today, and I literally just had to drive my account on to get TVC on this panel. I mean, you would think I would have to pay Brandon to do this, but I had to pay TVC to come on here. I mean, what the hell's going on? But
he got paid.
I'll let you know how much, and you can mark it up, Brandon.
But anyway, how's everybody doing? Good Tuesday to y'all. Yes, tonight we have got Brandon with us, and we are going to be talking about a new pod system that EVOLV has out on the market. First off, I want to say this. I didn't know about this pod system till last week, till I seen Phil Basardo's video. And I was like, holy crap, because y'all know me, I love pods. And when I seen this, I was like, oh my goodness, I have got to give this thing a shot right here. So I talked with Brandon, and Brandon was so kindly to overnight all of us one so we could sit here and talk about it on the show tonight with y'all. So that's exactly what we're going to do. And then probably towards the end of the show, we're going to open it up to some questions and maybe talk about a little other stuff. But I am doing one thing different tonight. We are skipping buffets because buffets kind of take a while to get through. And I just figured, hey, tonight we're going to leave that one alone. But anyway, let's open it up. Thank you for joining us tonight, Brandon. Of course, thank you for what you've done there, shipping this out to all of us. I'm pretty stoked about this. What brought this upon? I know you went with the DNA Go and the Orion model, but what possessed you to bring this one to the table?
This one we've been working on for quite a while, since about 2014, and it was it's just one more step, I think, in the evolution of the e-cigarette. We looked at why we weren't keeping people who were moving over from cigarettes. Part of it we felt like had to do with the control system, that an e-cigarette wasn't like a real combustible cigarette. So we wanted to, our goal has always been to solve the cigarette, to sort of give us a smoke-free future. And I think, we were talking about this before, Scott, earlier. At least me and most of the people I know that quit smoking didn't quit smoking because we didn't like smoking. We like smoking very much.
Exactly.
It's just that we were hunting for a less risky alternative. And the thing with this, when I first tried the technology, and it, quite a while ago, it was nostalgic. I mean, it brought it back almost immediately, because the way this works is it works exactly like a cigarette, whereas every other e-cigarette on the market right now works in exactly the opposite way of a cigarette in one way. And that is, the harder you pull, the less intense an e-cigarette gets, but the harder you pull, the more intense a smoke gets, and vice versa. And we felt like that may have been the reason that a lot of people were coughing. We handed these to a lot of smokers and had them try them, and a lot of smokers who had tried vaping and had walked away from vaping because they were like, it's just not as good as a cigarette. And we've been able to keep more of them. And I feel like as a market, as a market of vapors, the one thing that we need to do, unless we want to, just keep selling into a diminishing market, is to, convert more people to this less risky alternative. And if we're not doing that, we're losing vapors back to cigarettes. And if we're not converting anyone, our group is shrinking.
Yeah. I know too that, like, so when I first started vaping, of course, I used the pen style. I dropped a lot of money on something that nowadays would cost you maybe $10 at a store, but it took more willpower than what the actual device was doing for me.
Right.
Now I kind of see it as where if a smoker was to pick something like this up, it'd be more of the actual device working, opposed to so much of that willpower that you have to have. You still got to have both when you're first quitting, especially if you're a longtime smoker. But, in the beginning, like a lot of us, most of us have been vaping. Woof, I'm hitting almost 8 years. All these guys are the same, if not longer. And, back then, technology was not there where it is today with this stuff. So it's definitely changed the playing field with this. But
yeah, I think once we get, once the technology gets to the point where, to beat smoking, you have to be for all values of better than a cigarette. We're already cheaper.
Yeah.
Even with the high cost of this device, over time, it's much, much cheaper than smoking. Yeah. But the experience needs to be better. And in this case, I think similar is okay. I had a lot of people have been emailing us since we announced wide release on this. And, one of the questions is, can I use this? These are vapors. And I'm like, of course. Were you a smoker? Now, if you weren't a smoker, this is going to be a very foreign control system to you. Mm-hmm. But if you were a smoker, it almost makes you nostalgic. And again, for me, there's those moments, even, 11 years out, almost 12 years out, where I still, I'm kind of like, oh, that guy's smoking. That looks really good. Yeah. So, but with this, I feel like we're getting one step closer to being better for all values of better than a cigarette.
Could I jump in with a question?
Yeah,
sure. Go for it.
So and I'm interested sort of in the, you have this plan in your business to come out with a product, and the product is going to be marketed to that difficult smoker that's had a difficult time transitioning. Yep. What was the challenges in the development process, and was there any aha or magical moments where you sort of figured out a piece of that puzzle to nail something that had previously not been able to be solved? Was there something?
John, he decided, my ideas are always, I always end up shooting lower than he goes. John's my co-owner. For anyone that doesn't know, he owns half of EVOLV with me, and he's just a genius engineer. And he said, let's not do that. Let's actually bring cigarettes into our lab. Let's actually model the output. So let's run these through all the different flow states. Let's watch people smoke, see how they use these, find out what the actual wattage output is of a combustible cigarette. So he actually measured the wattage output at different flow rates. So as you pull harder, obviously the wattage goes up. And we modeled, the reflex is actually modeled on a specific cigarette brand here in the U.S. Now we did model all of the different ones, and it's surprising. Some are very different than others. Camels from Marlboros from, they do vary. They are different.
When you say vary, are you talking about the actual filtration system on the cigarette?
No, I'm talking about the amount of power that they put out based on the airflow. So if you're drawing it, like a very light draw would be like a 10 milliliter per second draw. So that's a very, very light draw. A very hard draw in a cigarette would be like a 50 milliliter per second draw. And the cigarette behaves very differently. Throughout the puff, you may start, most smokers, when they draw, they sort of draw hard at the beginning and then it tapers off. And that has to do with the way a cigarette works. You get that sort of hot coal in the beginning, and then you sort of back it off as it gets intense, and you feel like you're getting a lungful, and then you sort of drop. Now with vapors, we sort of, what's the first thing they tell you when you go into a vape shop now is, okay, this isn't like a cigarette, so you're going to have to draw very steadily, and there's a reason for that too. And one of the things we did was we spent a lot of time modeling existing. Tearing them apart and modeling the airflow on existing atomizers to find out what made the ones that were good, tasted good, the flavor, what made them good. So how do you quantify what makes good flavor? So we started we broke them apart. We ran them through airflow analysis to see how the air passed over the coil, where the air went, just to find out what made one that tastes really good, and one that tastes really bad, tastes really bad. And one of the things that we, sort of a side note, that we found with these is that most atomizers on the market are only good at one airflow. So whether that be 25 milliliters per second, the minute you drop off of 25 milliliters per second, you start to get hot spots on the coil. You start to get some funky stuff going on with the airflow over the coil, things like that. Turbulent air that ends up condensing and dropping back, you get all kinds of weird stuff. So most of what we saw were, there were a whole lot that were really, really good, but only at one airflow. And, that makes a lot of sense because they're made for, okay, I'm going to pull this hard on it. So what we had to do is make something that worked well at all airflows. So it tasted good if you're doing a very, very light puff, or if you're doing a very hard puff. And that sounds easy, but that is freaking hard.
Oh, I imagine.
Yeah, but the modeling part of it was the coolest part. I think when we were working on this, it was like, okay, but we're going to model actual cigarettes. We had a stinky lab for months and months and months, just buying packs of cigarettes and just running them through, measuring everything about them. So this should, have the draw tightness of a cigarette. That should react exactly like a cigarette at any point. If you start pulling harder, it should feel like a cigarette would. Where that coal gets hotter, you start to get, yeah.
That's true what you're saying. This is what I was, before the show started, remember I said there was something I wanted to say that happened to me? Okay. Do you know the way sometimes you could be doing something, whatever, and you feel like you're smelling or tasting something, but you're not? It's like in your head from memory.
Right.
I don't know if that happened to you, but when I started vaping this, I'm like, why do I taste tobacco?
Right.
Well, there was no tobacco, no. I was smelling the tobacco from a cigarette.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what the hell's going on here? And it wasn't even the liquid. The liquid, there's no tobacco inside here flavor. It brought back that memory of the cigarette. So it was all psychological in the head, and I was smelling it where actually I wasn't smelling it. Isn't that weird?
Yeah. I mean, I had the same experience. We did a perception and attention study with this some time ago for our PMTA, and so we gave these to people to try, and it was really interesting watching people use this for the first time, because I really hadn't seen that. I mean, we had given some to give to, because every vapor knows that guy or that girl or that mom or that uncle that you've given a ton of equipment to, not cheap equipment either. I mean, you're like, here, this will get you off cigarettes, here, go try this. And then they come back, and then you see them like 3 weeks later, they're standing outside with a cigarette, and you're like, what happened? They're like, oh, it wasn't charged, so I didn't bring it. But that guy. So we were always looking for that guy or that girl or that mom or that uncle, and and having people do that, but actually giving it to vapors was one of the most interesting things, because I spent some time with that perception intention study talking to people in vape shops, letting them try it, and just watching them, the ex-smokers, just watching them use this, and sort of that, like you said, that muscle memory. I mean, there was John talks about this study they did where they handed people bicycles that when you turn the handlebar left, the wheel goes right, and they said, here, we want you to learn to ride this, and it took them months to learn to ride this thing. And when they gave them back a regular bicycle, they were able to get on it, and within an hour, even after having ridden this one that was backwards, within an hour, they were right back at it. It was like, no problem. And that's kind of how this is, or at least how it was for me. I mean, I can only speak for myself, but you could see their eyes light up. And we do see that because we can see airflow, because the device measures airflow very accurately. We can see how hard they're pulling, and you can watch over time, over an hour, how that ex-smoker who's been vaping for 6 years picks this up, and all of a sudden in an hour he's using it like he did a cigarette, and it's really fun to watch. So,
well, I think a thing with this too is we've probably, well, I don't want to say there's probably been so many people lost to the fact that they wanted to quit smoking. They tried vaping, and even like more MTL devices, it was still too much airflow. It was too much, more than what they're used to. And some people are just like, oh no, there's no way that I could do this. And what I'm realizing with this, I mean, I'm a seasoned vapor and I'm enjoying it, but I could see where a brand new smoker with proper nicotine level in this would pick this up. And it is so restricted to the point that it mimics a cigarette, and they wouldn't have so much of like a learning curve, opposed to like I said, when I tried the pen, I was taking a lot in there, and it was like, yeah, this is good. I like the flavor, but it still feel like I'm taking in way more than what I was taking off of a light cigarette. But again, the willpower is like, I got to do this. And then I just came adapted to it. Now it's like with a device like this, you're not having to adapt so hard to things. It's just like, I mean, I'm going to tell you, it's not identical to a cigarette. To me, it's not. There's still there's a hair bit more airflow than what a cigarette would be. Okay. But this by far is the most restricted pod system that I have ever tried, and it damn near mimics. I mean,
yeah, I would say it's the closest out of all the pod systems I've
tried.
Yeah,
there's nothing else out there that comes as close as what this does right here. And like I said, this is real restricted right here. So I think,
well, we're doing this cold, so go ahead.
No, I was just saying that there's nothing else out on the market unless there is, and I haven't seen it, but obviously you would know it. But
I mean, we really haven't seen anything that actually has the draw of a cigarette, which is this. Now, is this on the looser end of a cigarette? I think, cigarettes vary.
Yeah, true.
But this is well within the range of a cigarette. But like I said, I came into this cold. I don't know what you guys think of this. I don't know. I didn't talk to you guys ahead of time about what your experience has been. So I'm here to learn. So tell me what you guys think of it.
Here's the monkey on the back. We all discussed this right before the show opened, and like I said, Brandon doesn't really know any of our opinions other than just kind of minor to this. But we all have came to the same conclusion on it.
Okay.
We do wish that it was a round drip tip, or I don't want to say drip tip. That is the wrong terminology. A round tip instead of what's on there. And Brandon even agreed with that, but it was.
I did. We went back and forth on this, and this was John had an idea of how he wanted the mouthpiece to rest. When people smoke, I mean, he studied people. John doesn't smoke, he doesn't vape, so he watches. He observes, tries to quantify how everything works. And, watching people smoke, he noticed that they kept the tip very shallow in the mouth, whereas vapors, tend to get in, the drip tip goes a lot further in the mouth. And so he watched that, and he felt like this was, the best shape. And honestly, I didn't, at first I was a little like, oh, that's an awkward shape. It's kind of flat on the top, but it does seal really well. And it does sort of keep it where a cigarette would be. But a cigarette is round. But after a little bit of using it, I don't even notice it now, honestly.
Yeah.
And you can always turn it sideways, then it becomes round.
You did bring up a good point though.
Yeah.
And I got to even kind of give this one, like something Mike was saying here a while back on a video. So, a lot of us have been Caliburn, we're hardcore Caliburn users. Well, a couple of us are anyway. Well, when they came out with the Caliburn G, one of the things they changed was the tip on it. It's no longer what it used to be. It's not a huge drastic change, but there is a change to it. So right off the bat, when Mike did his video, one of his things that he didn't care for was the tip to it. He liked the original feel. So when I got mine and started using, I'm like, yeah, it is different. And it's kind of weird vaping on this, but it's like what you just said a minute ago. I did it for about less than a week, and now I'm used to it. It just feels like it's normal. And I could see where this could very well, after using it for a few days, just become the norm to it. But
if I heard correctly, do these pods, are they supposed to last longer than the traditional pods, or?
Yes.
Yeah.
We baby these pods. They're built for more than we give them. Well, more than a cigarette would, to give you what it is. And these are extremely tightly temperature controlled devices. The coil in this is plus or minus 1% on the tolerance, which was ridiculously hard to do. Anybody who's wound a coil knows getting it within 5 milliohms, that's 0.005, plus or minus that's pretty tight. So these, that was a nightmare. Getting this thing into production, wide production. It's easy to make a few of these, which we did to meet legal requirements for being on the market as of 2016. But when you decide to make hundreds of thousands of these, it becomes very difficult, because now you have to figure out a way to make a coil that's within a 1% tolerance over hundreds of thousands of units, over hundreds of thousands, if not millions of coils. So it becomes very, 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 very difficult. And because we weren't able to change the size of it, we weren't able to change the way it worked in any way, it also presented other challenges. But this is our PMTA product. This is the thing we do have an application in with the FDA for.
Right.
So
now, can you tell us a little bit about the pod, material of the pod itself and all that?
Yeah, this is Altem. This is an engineered plastic. So we're using, most pod systems out there use polycarbonate, which is not a high temperature plastic. That's why on occasion, if you really go at it, you can melt a pod or cause it to deform, especially the bottom of the pod nearest the coil. This is using an engineered plastic, made for high heat, which is Altem. We had to order it special to get it this color, so it wasn't that sort of piss yellow. And you just have to buy a lot of it if you want to get this color. But it's you'll notice inside the chimney is not made of metal. It's made of it's also made of Altem, because it can handle the temperatures that it's being thrown out. A lot of work went into this coil. A lot. Into the pod itself.
Steel, you said, right? Stainless steel coil.
Yeah, it's stainless steel 316. Yeah. There's two caps on the bottom that you can fill through. They're small. You'll see those arrows. Those arrows need to be. There's only two things you need to remember with this. One is those arrows need to point toward the pins when you put the caps back inside. That is also your airflow. So
you only need
to look
at
those, you can
one,
see.
Correct?
It depends on the bottle you're using. I usually pull both out if it's a bigger tip bottle.
Okay.
You know, if it's a narrow tip bottle, yeah, there's enough air escapes, but it is a small pod, so it's one of those things that, you know, it's a little bit easier if you remove the other side,
All right.
so that the stuff flows a little better.
This was asked to you by Phil now, but I'm going to bring it back up because I'm certain people might say something. So, do you have a fear? Now, hold on, let me rephrase this. First of all, in my opinion, I love that the plugs are not attached, because for me, I've got big sausage fingers. And when there's like plugs that are attached, I can never seem to get them to pop off and move, you know, where I can put my juice in it. Now, these plugs come off. Are you worried about the plugs being removed where people are going to start losing them and having issues and stuff like that?
Yeah, that came up. We looked at ways of attaching them to the pod, but again, we couldn't change the size of the device. We couldn't change anything about it. And because we were sort of stuck with the decisions we made. So we stuck with the decisions we made. Yeah, would it have been better? You know, the first time you buy one, the first time you finish up your very first pod, if you just take those two and throw them in a drawer, you've got them. I mean,
I see as extras.
That's
Yeah,
true.
that
I was
is
just gonna
true.
say- that's what I was just gonna say. Why don't you maybe? I know you don't include any extras,
no.
right? So I was gonna say to at least include one just in case. Let's say somebody buys this and they go to fill it, they drop the plug, and they can't find it.
Well, hopefully they'd have more than one pod. But yeah,
Right,
I mean, you
right.
could steal it. You could steal it from the next one, I suppose. You know, but it's not really something we had thought about too much. I mean, you know, they are kind of a pain in the ass, but once you get used to them, like when I'm filling mine, I just stick it in my mouth. I mean, that's just what I do.
No,
But
go
go ahead.
No, I was gonna say another thing I noticed was the packaging is great.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I saw this and I was like, this is awesome.
Yeah, that case is awesome.
The case is just gorgeous, and then you open it up, and the pod just sits right inside here. Now, you get the instruction manual and the case. I noticed no extra pod, so it only comes just for people that don't know. It comes with one pod.
One pod.
Another thing, no micro USB charging cable.
Yeah, but again, 2016. You know, I don't. I mean, I don't want to besmirch anybody's been on the market since 2016, but how many devices do you know that were using USB-C in 2016?
Not USB-C. I'm sorry. It doesn't come with a micro USB charging cord.
Oh, you're saying the cable itself.
Yeah.
You know, we went back and forth. John and I went back and forth on this, and there is room in the case. But John, you know, John's like, everybody already has a cable. They don't need a cable. And I'm like,
yeah, that's pretty much, you could say, pretty much everybody has that already.
Are there any amperage issues with different wall adapters if you don't include the cable or the wall adapter? You can use 2 amp and
you can use 2 amp. It's only gonna draw what it draws, which is 1 amp. But depending on the length of the cable, it could be less, could be more.
And the Type-C obviously
couldn't be more, but it can only be less. What's that?
The Type-C is obviously understandable because this was a project that was from 2014.
Yes.
PMTA, and you can't just on the fly say, "Oh, you know what? Let's just put Type-C on it now."
Yeah, we were very careful. We probably played it a little more conservatively than we had to with this. But John also wanted it. He was absolutely. I mean, if you open this up, and I can send you pictures of one open. There is no wasted space in this. There's not a millimeter of space in here. If you saw the pins are made of a special metal that John chose that's super conductive but super springy. The way the pins are routed, the way he had to route those to get them up there, they have to go around so many things because it's so tight in there. We couldn't just take pins and go straight up.
Right.
He had to jog them around, and so they're bent in a very strange configuration just to get them up there. But this is actually the length of a cigarette. So somebody who dual uses, let's say somebody who just picked this up is still smoking, but you know, let's say they're using cigarettes half the time, they're using vape half the time, can drop this right into their cigarette box and close the top. It's exactly the length of the cigarette.
Right.
And we wanted to keep that. That's the other reason that John, you know, at no point during this, even when it got hard, did he want to lengthen this. He wanted it at that, you know, very specific length.
Right.
So
Another thing-
go ahead,
go
Mike.
ahead.
Well, I was going to say real quick. I noticed in the pamphlet that this can hook up to eScribe. So is this kind of like the DNA Go where you can just do like a few minor tweaks or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. There are some things you can change. If you don't like what you get, you know, and one of the other things we were going to do was allow people to download actual profiles for the cigarettes that they actually smoked. Because they do differ. I mean, albeit not hugely, but they do differ. You know, a Camel Light's different than a Marlboro Light, is different than a Winston, it's different than a. But getting that seemed like a legal nightmare to me.
Yeah.
So we sort of backed off that idea a little bit, but from a big tobacco standpoint, that's not a fight I want to pick. But yeah, those do exist. You know, and maybe at some point we will, you know, figure out a way to do that. But we did choose, you know, ones that we felt like were most representative, sort of what we saw of the most popular brands. So,
Right.
How
So
about this-
basically, the device has 3 different power levels.
Yeah.
You have
correct.
ultra light, light, and full flavor. So
Yeah,
basically,
those are actually the cigarette names, but now I guess they don't call them lights anymore. But
Right.
that you know,
So- in other words, they're 3 different power levels, right? You consider them that way. Getting more.
yeah, they're actually curves. They're actually
Curves.
they're 3 different cigarette models, and the reason they have the name they do, we didn't choose. You know, we didn't say, well, we're going to make this an ultralight and this a light. We did that because that's what the cigarettes were
That's the
called, or at least when I
cigarette's curve.
smoked.
The
I found out
cigarette's
only I found out only afterwards, just recently, that they don't call them lights anymore, or
They don't?
ultralights, or no,
Yeah,
they don't.
Oh, wow.
stopped it.
I didn't know that. I had no idea. I hadn't bought cigarettes in years.
Yeah. Ooh.
Mark knows.
So this doesn't have like a straight wattage, like 9, 10, 11 watts, right? It's a bit of a curve, you said?
Well, it's however hard you pull. Yeah, I mean, you can take any one of these profiles if you pull hard enough and get it, you know, up to 30 watts, no problem. You know, and 30 watts is a lot for a little, but you
Yeah.
know, she'll handle it.
Definitely.
She'll handle it.
That's one of the first things I noticed this morning when I would take a long draw and I would increase the pull strength.
Mhm.
All of a sudden, it would get this feeling like when you get like halfway done your cigarette and it starts to get closer to the cherry and the filter's getting a little bit more moist.
Yeah.
It has a very similar experience to the warmth coming into your mouth and also the wetness. It feels very, very, very much like a cigarette at that point. On
Right.
those long pulls.
Well,
That was our hope.
let
It's
me.
pretty crazy, like how hard you pull on it depends on like the vape you get. It's a totally different vape if you pull on it harder.
Yeah.
I've never experienced, I don't think, anything like that before.
Well, you control it. I mean, that's the thing. It's no, you know, you're not setting anymore to, okay, I need to open my airflow up this much and I need to set my wattage to this because this is what I like. You're actually controlling it. So if you don't like, you know, if you don't like how hot it is, you back off a little bit. If you want it hotter, you just pull harder. Just like a cigarette. You know, and I think I've messaged this a little bit, you know, like you said on some of the other talks I've had with people. I think I've messaged it a little bit wrong. I don't think this is something that is just for the guy who or girl who hasn't been able to transition, you know, to vaping that wants to. I think this is something that if you were a smoker and you're now a vapor, this is something you may enjoy a lot. You know, not just for nostalgic reasons, but you know, when you got into vaping, you were looking for something that was like a cigarette, unless you really hated cigarettes. And then why the hell were you smoking anyway? I mean, I love cigarettes. But I think I think it pulls it back. I think it brings it right back to you. Somebody's battery's low.
Yeah, that's mine for some reason.
He's a beginner at this live show thing, so hang with him.
Okay, all right.
Shut off.
Another thing I wanted to show for people that don't know, with the device itself, you have got a button here and one there, and that's how you release the pod. You press and
Yep.
releases, and then goes back in, give it a press, and slips right down.
Yep. Or you can just click it in. It won't hurt it a bit if you just you give it a nice hard
And then
push.
it also does this. When you take the
that's
pot out and put it back in, it does that. That's a feature to where it's heating
Priming.
up the
yeah, you're priming the coil.
to pull liquid.
It auto primes.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. That was something that we really hated about pod systems in particular. Was sometimes you couldn't even get drops down in the top of them to get it onto the coil, so you had to sort of set it aside, and then you're like, and me, I'm very impatient. So if I got a pod system, I would leave it sit for a second, and I'd be like, yeah, it's been 5 minutes, right? And then I would get it, and I would, oh yeah, no, it's not been 5 minutes. And or you're taking the cap and you're unscrewing it, screwing it back on, or you're pulling the plug and pushing it back in, or pulling, sticking your thumb there and pulling through it. And I'm like, there's got to be a better way. And John actually came up with it. It's quite simple. We're just running it. We're running it to a temperature below boiling that that gets the juice around the cotton, less viscous and starts to flow a little bit better. And it does work. I usually run mine, because I run a little bit thicker juice. I usually run mine through that cycle twice. So it will happen every time you pull the pod off. It'll go into that auto wicking, even though this was a used pod. Every time I put a pod on, because it doesn't know one pod from another, it will go back into that wicking cycle. So
Didn't do it that time.
I always wondered, like with this device and other devices, like, do you guys, since you spend so much time on developing these things, like, what do you guys worry about stuff getting cloned in China, like by the big companies? Like, so, let's just say something like this that you guys worked years on. Do you guys worry about that?
Yeah,
look at the DNA.
Yeah, well, that happens. I mean, over the years, over the decade I've been doing this, you get kind of, our industry runs on new, and you have to keep in mind that to do this and do it well, you have to do all the other things extremely well. So you have to do wattage extremely well. You have to do, reading of resistance extremely well. You have to do measuring of airflow extremely well. You have to do temperature control extremely well. So am I worried that there's going to be a knockoff of this? No, I'm positive there'll be a knockoff of this. Do I think there'll be a good knockoff of this? Not for a couple of years, unless they're really, really good. It's extreme. I can't state how hard this was to do, and how much time and effort went into getting this right. But maybe that's our mistake. I mean, we tend to, maybe we let the perfect be the enemy of the good. But we really wanted to make sure that this gave an experience that was similar to something we were all familiar with. And this is pretty much all I use now. I mean, every once in a while I'll go, back to a tank, and but pretty much with this is all I use.
I got a question for you. Now,
Sure.
before this, what's your style of vaping? Direct lung? Were you doing the mouth to lung? And
I would do both. I would do both, but I always leaned toward mouth to lung. I always vaped the way I smoked. You got to remember, I started in vaping in 2008, so there was no direct lung equipment then. So I sort of stuck with what I knew. I've always been high nicotine. Like when the 3s and the 6s came out, I was like, oh my God, who would possibly, even the 12s, we were like, 12? That seems so low. I started on 36 and I used 12 in this, but on other things like other mouth to lung tanks, I would probably jump up to 18. This one hits me a little bit harder, and there's some reasons for that.
All right. So what's your favorite, other than the Reflex? What's your favorite MTL setup, tank and device?
Honestly, I like the Aries because No. I like the Aries because it's a lot like it's a lot like the original Nautilus tank by Aspire. I loved the Nautilus tank. Mm-hmm. I absolutely love the Nautilus tank. And that was, that still is my go-to. I still have nickel Nautilus coils.
Wow.
As you can
Wow.
believe.
Oh, wow.
I think I bought any I could find when they stopped making them.
Stop
So I have
that.
tons of these nickel Nautilus coils because I use temperature control pretty much religiously. And so I still have those. I still have boxes, cases of those things.
Right.
Well, I mean, I don't promote anything, but if you were looking for like a newer style MTL RTA, I happen to know one that you might like.
Okay, all right. Are we talking after the show? Are we going to do a little horse trading?
I mean, it is from your boy Mike Vapes up there. So.
Okay, Mike. Oh, Mike, were you looking for the answer? I didn't know.
Oh no. This just got released. No, but I'll send.
Oh, okay.
ST's trying to.
Yeah. Oh, please do.
I'll send you
Please
my
do.
the MTL or TA.
Please do. Yeah.
But no, I was just curious on what you vaped.
Uh-huh.
What's your style? What about device?
Honestly, I mean, I could walk over to my thing right now and pull out Nautilus coil, or remember the old Nautilus tanks that look like that? Look like a really awful baby bottle.
Yeah, that's
with
how
that
I
drift,
quit.
that silver drift, right?
The Nautilus Mini. When the Nautilus Mini came out, I was like, oh.
Well, hold on. Here's a better question. Because I know for me and Mike what it's about. So when you got your big boy mod out, are you using a DNA device or are you using something else?
No, I'm definitely using a DNA.
There we go.
That's the question I wanted to ask.
No, I have, oh gosh, I can't remember what his name is.
Do you own any Yeehee products?
No, but I was just going to get into that. Everybody thinks that us and Yeehee were, or us and Provery back in the day when we had the Darwin out, we were, terrible. And I talked to those guys. I talked to the owner of Yeehee when I see him at a show. Actually, his wife loves me, and she's always running up to me. And at shows, well, back when we had shows before, everyone's going to die, but she would run up to me and be like, oh, look what we have out now. Here, try this. And she would hand it to me, and I'd be like this. I'd be like, thinking anybody with a camera around here is going to be, they're going to get a picture of me using the Yeehee, so I'm sitting over here in the corner. I'm like, it's good. I mean, yeah. No, there was no love lost between any of us. I mean, even back to the ProVape days. I talked to one of the owners of ProVape. It was not too long before they went out of the industry. And I think at that point he knew he was going out. But we were talking about ANSI and, some of the standards body stuff, but they're all good people. I getting copied, I think that was the original question. It happens. I mean, you just try to do it as best you can. The real shame in getting copied, and you guys know this because all of you guys, I think, have at one point or another brought something out, is the amount of time and effort that goes into the R&D on these things and getting it right is so easy for someone else just to grab and do. They don't have to go through any of the things that you went through to get there. And I think that's the shame of it. But the stuff is getting, we layered so much of what we had done previously, and you have to do it all well to make this type of thing work well. I mean, we're getting into some serious, although there's not a lot of settings and a lot of things that would confuse the user with this, there is a shit ton of tech in here. I mean, the stuff that's going on under the hood is dumbfounding.
Right. Well, if they try to duplicate it, they're going to obviously, the way they did with your temperature control,
right?
The clones came out, then we'd have to sit there and test the devices to see if they burned the cotton. And they always tried, or they try doing it differently, where they're almost like deceiving temperature controls and stuff like that,
right? Until
they finally get it.
Yeah.
So that's the part where you got to hope hopefully it takes them years before they actually figure it out.
Yeah. I mean, I was surprised that nobody came out and duplicated Replay, but Replay was another one of those that was, but Replay looks stupid easy compared to what we did here. Yeah. I mean, stupid easy.
So
and nobody really came out with a.
Well, let me finish asking my question from earlier because I never got the to ask him. What's your favorite DNA chipset that you like to use?
DNA 60.
And your favorite mod. Your favorite mod with the DNA 60, I guess, in it.
Oh God.
See, this was what I was about to ask.
No, see, that's not fair because I mean, I get, a lot of these high-end guys that, they send me, I'll get something or I'll get a discount on them. I buy them and they're phenomenal. So I'm always, I have a million mods up here. I'm trying to think which one do I always go? Oh, I'll show you one.
Here we go.
You want to see the one I always go for?
Yeah, well, that's the one you like then.
Yeah. and this is actually, I think, a DNA 75, but I just love this. And this is a French, I think a Titanite made this. I just thought this was as cool as hell. This is a DNA 70, I think this is DNA 75. Yeah, it's DNA 75, but I love this thing.
That's beautiful.
It has these replaceable panels, and he had an artist do, he did these limited edition panels on this. He even put Evolve on the back for me, which
I remember
nice.
seeing pictures of that on Instagram.
I tell you what, this thing is just cool. I'm sorry, but you carry this thing around, you're like, yeah, I'm a badass. Look at this thing. I mean, it's cool as hell.
That with the Nautilus
but
with nickel coils.
Yeah, I mean, I like, I like everything that Lost Vapes done. I really like their style. Back when H Cigar used to do stuff, I liked their stuff too.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think, what are some of the other ones that I carried? Like the Vape Droid stuff. I always thought the Vape Droid stuff was really unique. I don't know what happened to him. I don't know if he's still making stuff.
I still have remember the one that he made with the DNA 75, had the 26650 battery.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah, it was a great feel in the hand too.
I love
Yeah.
the device.
Mhm.
Even the original H Cigar DNA 200.
Right.
The H Cigar one.
Yes.
That was just
See, I like that. I like that one a lot. See, I like internal battery mods. A lot of people don't. I mean, H Cigar had a couple of internal battery mods that I just absolutely loved. I didn't want to have to futz with batteries. But I also come from a perspective of, oh my God, do I have a lot of mods? And typically they come to me for free. So, having batteries isn't a big thing. I can carry 2 or 3 in my car. So,
Well, I got a two-part
if
question.
If I was paying for them, it would be a whole different.
I got a two-part question on a donation here, and this is from our man, Mr. Phenom Vapes.
Here we go.
If you don't know him, well, you know him because you stock him up with a lot of stuff. But anyway,
Oh yeah.
Phenom says, can you use Hit That Donut e-liquid from Hit That Juice DOTCOM in this pod? I don't want to say the full thing because I don't want to get hit. So he's pretty much asking, can you use Mike's juice in your pod? And I'm guessing we know what the answer is to that.
Yes.
of course.
Is there a warranty on this device? And if so, like how many days or months?
Oh yeah, that's
Manufacturer's defects a year.
Okay.
So if the board or something goes, wonky on you, which would be pretty much the only place this thing's going to fail, or if something else like that happens. All the wear items are 90 days. So like batteries, stuff like that.
Because I've seen of course you're going to see this comment everywhere, but people are kind of asking why spend $120.
Yes.
And I'm like, well, it's probably made in the States. And on top of that, you get that warranty that a lot of other devices don't even carry. Like you get a warranty on a device from China, but keep in mind, you got to send it all the way back to China and then probably pay to send it back. So I'm assuming a little bit of that price tag goes to the warranty.
well,
go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I kind of look at it like this, and I'm just kind of giving somewhat of my opinion to this because it was just discussed. There is a lot under the hood under this compared to something like this. Now, of course, the consumer's going to buy what they want to buy, of course, but you might get one of these and it's only going to last you just a little bit, where these are pretty well known. I mean, stuff coming from you with Evolve backing it up, I don't see a whole lot of issues. I don't remember anybody talking like mad stuff about like when the DNA Go was in the Orion. It seemed like nothing but, everybody was happy and pleased with no issues. Of course, I'm not working behind the scenes to know everything that's going on, but we see stuff in Facebook groups and everywhere else. And, there was really, it was only but, positive sayings about it. But I think that, what you're paying for is a lot of this is the technology to it. So, and me and Mike, well, hold on. Me and Mike Mike brought this up because we were talking about your product at the tail end of my show last week. And, Mike would, started saying, how much did you pay on your first device? Well, this is what I paid for my first device that now you can get for $10, but back then, I don't know what just happened there, but Mark, you by far are one of the biggest fucking idiots that I know.
He can't even do it.
He can't control himself. He's tried to be good. I don't know. I just don't know.
Little kid to the adults table.
Brandon, did you catch what he did?
I did.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah. I would love to be able to just cut loose and do that every once in a while.
Oh, let me read this donation real quick. Thank you for the donation there, Mr. Freedom Issue. He says, for Mark, for being well behaved. You said that at the wrong goddamn time.
Freedom Issue wants a refund on his money. But it's true, though. When we first quit smoking and we bought our first vape devices, we bought like the cigarettes and those kits, like $150.
Oh yeah.
And we
I paid $150.
Yeah.
We didn't hesitate to get liquid while we're vaping it. Liquids sucked up into our mouth from it and whatever we wanted to quit. It's not the point of I'm quitting cigarettes because I can't afford it, so I'm gonna vape. No, it's more the number one concern should be I need to quit for my health.
Yeah.
That's the way I see it. No matter what it costs, I need to quit. But look.
Yeah, and
people still quit. I mean, before this device came along.
True.
But with this device, this brings another tool to secure those that tried vaping for the first time and did not enjoy it because they were expecting the cigarette experience.
Exactly.
So this here is what's going to lock them in to most likely quit smoking cigarettes.
Yeah.
Can you walk us through the discussions you had about the price point? Because I'm sure you internally had lots of conversations about the price point. Can you talk about that?
Yeah.
Can you pause for 1 second? I hate to do this to you.
A lot of it's no. Hey,
we have donations that come in, so I'm going to try to read.
Hey.
I apologize for cutting you off, but I'll make it real quick. Thank you for the donation there, Mr. Chest Hair Millionaire. He says, I wish there was a DNA 100 about the size of a DNA 60. I bet you do, brother. And thank you for the donation there, Mr. Dakota Simon. He says, how many DNA chips have you produced overall? How many units made, sold per year?
Wow.
Thank you for such a badass company, DNA all the way. And we will answer your question shortly, but I apologize, Brian. I didn't mean to do that to you.
Sorry.
Oh, no.
Yeah, go ahead.
Who was talking? I don't even remember.
Brandon,
He meant to say Brandon.
Brandon, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
What was he?
I'm sorry.
What was I saying? I don't even remember. I left.
Oh, we were talking about the price point.
Oh, the price point. Yeah. The how did that come down? We the pricing of this, right?
Yeah.
I think it's $120, correct?
But there's
unless you're over the age of 40.
Which I find kind of offensive, but go ahead.
I knew you would.
I feel old. It's like a senior discount.
Oh, you'll get there. You'll get there. It's reverse ageism. A lot of that centered around the what we didn't want, and and you guys may have completely different opinions about this, but my opinion, and I think John shares this opinion, is that the vaping industry was okay for a long time until a certain actor entered it.
Yep.
And that certain actor made some horrific mistakes, whether they were intentional or not, but they made us all very aware of how powerful marketing and price point and things like that can be. And so when we came up with the pricing structure for this, which we went back and forth, should it have been 35? Because that's really when I started thinking, hey, I need to quit this shit because I'm going to die.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it should have been 35. It shouldn't have been 40 because I quit before I was 40. But again, I was spending $60 a week on cartons. You know, I was a 2-pack a day smoker. So, you know, $120 for 2 weeks, you know, for something that's going to last a good long time. And we tried to keep the pods as cheap as possible. I mean, we could have, you know, a lot of these companies make a lot of their money on the coils and pods. We tried to keep that as cheap as possible, even given the fact that, you know, the materials we're using are 12 times more expensive than any other pod out there. So we looked at long-term, you know, use. So we do have to make a little bit up front. But the $80 price point for over the age of 40, because I think that's when you get really serious about quitting. You know, and the only thing you really need to bring with this device is willingness to quit. But you know, yeah, is it high priced? Yes. Did we put a ton of money into this? Did we throw money at like crazy? Price is justifiable given what it does. But to look at it, that's a hard sell. I mean, you look at this thing and you're like, well, wow, I can get something for $12. But it is, you know, it is a technological marvel under the hood. And if you're a smoker and you're ever nostalgic for cigarettes, this is, you know, this will give you that, you know, rather than going out and buying a pack and saying, well, I'm just going to cheat this weekend. You know, it's been 4 years. You can pull this out and it really does give you a cigarette experience, or at least I think it does. I mean, I haven't heard what you guys think of it. I mean,
well, like I said earlier, when I took my first few vapes, it triggered something in my head and I started smelling cigarettes. Meanwhile, it was because of that draw. It brought back that memory.
Yeah.
I guess that memory that's been closed up inside your brain. You know, it released it. And I mean, I don't get that feeling now, but that was like the first few hits. And I was like sitting here vaping and I'm like, what the hell's going on here? And then I'm like, wow. Yeah.
I would say aside from the shape, it does represent, kind of feel like a cigarette when you're vaping it, like the pull and how hard you pull, and it feels almost close to a cigarette.
And if anybody keeps up with me, which there are maybe one or two people, if I say one thing more than anything, like if I'm doing MTL stuff, I get my stuff as restricted as possible because I like that.
Right.
When I tried this right here, now I will say this, and of course, if you read the title to this show, it is first impressions on this device. Mm-hmm. As I vape it further throughout the week and weeks to come, you know, my opinion might change, but as of today, of me just starting to use it, first off, I noticed it's going to take, again, my opinion, it's going to take at least 5 to 7 pulls to get that coil kind of broke in. Because as soon as I took that first hit, man, it choked me up bad because it was so restrictive and it kind of hit me in a way that I'm not used to being hit with a vape product. So I was like, whoa, you know, I'm like, damn, I hope it doesn't stay like this. But then I took a few more hits and I realized, oh, okay, it's doing its thing in there. But you nailed it on being restrictive. I mean, I love it. But I also got to say this. I can't remember exactly how it is to hit on a cigarette because it's been so many damn years since I've hit on one. But I will say, out of all the pod systems I've ever messed with, this by far kills it on restriction, and it's got pretty good flavor on it. I'm enjoying it. So it's not a final review there, folks, which I know people are probably dying for, but Brian, your thoughts.
Before you get into your thoughts, I just want to bring one thing up. You know, I don't know if you can remember this, but when smoking a cigarette, you take that pull, right? Then you would take that bigger pull, and you see the head of the cigarette light up.
Yeah.
The sound it makes to that reaction, it mimics it.
It does. That crack.
Am I right, Brandon, on that part?
That is, no, you are absolutely right. That is, yeah.
Go ahead, Brian. Sorry.
So my impressions, first things first, I just got this morning. So I got it this morning. As soon as it came in the mail, I plugged it in to give it a full charge to make sure that it was all the way green when I finished charging it, I filled up the pod with 18 milligrams of a liquid that I'm very familiar with, which is the Paradigm Charger, which is a mint, which I love, especially in a tight draw with something like this. As far as the shape goes, I will say that I'm going to have to allow my brain to get used to the shape of the tip. I'm one of those people that I like to free hang a pod out of my mouth, and I like to puff on it as I'm sitting there. And this is going to be a test for me with my chewing on the end.
Yeah, he's bad about that.
Yeah, I mean, you could take a look at this right here. This is a drip tip of mine. It looks like crud, but it's teeth marks because I always, chew on it like having a. And when I smoked, I used to have a butt hanging out of my mouth all the time. As far as the tight restriction, it very, 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 very closely resembles the draw of a cigarette. I like the ramping up of the warmth based on the pull. I think the flavor is on point for this liquid that I'm very familiar with. And the thing that blows me away the most out of all the things is that I filled this morning and have been using it exclusively, and it's not even empty yet. This thing sips liquid so slowly. I don't know what kind of wizardry is doing that, but that is very, very impressive. And the battery life has been phenomenal. So,
yeah, I filled this up maybe like at noon, and that thing hasn't even moved yet.
Yeah. I've been over here chiefing this thing, and it hadn't done shit yet. So,
how are you able to do that? Is the atomization of it?
Part of it's the as you're coming off of your draw, you're not still up here. So you're using power efficiently. So the power is falling off as you fall off the draw. I mean, your draw doesn't stay perfectly even. It's going to fall off toward the end. And, so if you're running something at 15 watts, it's going to stay at 15 watts, regardless of how hard you're pulling. So it's going to keep atomizing liquid, whether you use it or not. It's just going to, with this, it does drop off at the end. So it is a little more efficient in that way, because everybody drops at the end. I mean, you can't sustain that all the way to the very last second and pop it away from your mouth. So, that is part of the reason you're getting a little more, probably the reason, I don't know, I hadn't really thought about it, but it's probably the reason you're actually keeping a little more liquid too. The pod's deceptively bigger than it looks. It is a 2 mil pod, and it doesn't look like a 2 mil pod. So
now,
it looks smaller than that.
Since obviously you've been using the device for a while now, how long does a pod last you? If you
I usually get a week.
As, let's say, your main device.
Yeah, like right now I'm using a almost like a bourbon flavor liquid, so it's not real sweet. And I can get usually a week and a half out of this before it starts to mute out. The weird thing about these pods is that I'm always on the green setting. So I'm in the middle. So if I am using a very sweet juice, if it does start to caramelize, I'll find myself popping up the full flavor, just to get a little bit more out of it. Because, you're having to heat through that caramelization, which is a really inefficient way of heating. But I typically get at least a week, upwards of, I've gotten 2 weeks out of one, but that, I was using a very, very non-liquid. I find that the sweeter the liquid, the less out of it, but I typically get, even with my really sweet, like my, I've got like strawberry milkshake type stuff is super sweet. I can get usually a week out of that before I'm like, I'm not quite getting the flavor I was getting before.
Now, isn't there a feature
the vapor
with
production.
this when you blow into it?
Oh yes, yeah. You can lock it by blowing into it. You just give it a little.
Oh, are you? I thought people were joking in chat. Are you serious?
No.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
Just give it a little, just real quick blow.
Well, look, you'll see the light light up.
Yeah, it'll flash white.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now, can you
get,
deactivate it by blowing in again?
Yeah, just blow in again. There you go. Now you're back.
That's freaking awesome.
That is pretty. Wow, I thought people were fucking with me.
That's the nice thing you can do when you're actually measuring airflow. So this doesn't have a microphonic type, or a pressure sensor. It does have a pressure sensor, but not one that you would find traditionally. Not just an on-off type of thing with a membrane and the whole 9 yards. This thing is actually measuring airflow. It uses the same technology that your smartwatch uses. Your smartwatch knows that you climbed a flight of stairs because the
Mhm.
pressure is
Mhm.
different on the second floor than it is on the first floor. That's what this uses. So it,
Oh,
it
wow.
has, that technology in it.
Nice.
One last question. I'm not sure if it was answered, but can you do like high VG, or is it recommended to do like 50-50 in here, or does it matter?
This is 70-30.
Okay.
I mean, it works. Now, is it going to wick as fast? No, but it's tightly temperature controlled, so I'm not sure it matters.
Okay.
We tried to make this flow over the largest, we did look at the juices that were available and make sure that, we do, with the barcode on here, you can look at the wicking tightness, you can look at the resistance of the coil and see how close it is to all the other ones. But we do measure wicking tightness because that's, the thing that makes a pod bad is the wicking's too tight or the wicking's too loose or this or that. So we wanted to make sure we tightly controlled how much wicking goes into each one of these. And short of, paying someone to count strands, which is really inefficient, we came up with a way of, of measuring the wicking tightness, the amount of wicking in here, which is kind of clever. And so we measure for each pod, we measure the amount of wicking that is actually in there so that each pod should be the same as the last, You shouldn't get a bad pod. If you do, I want to know about it.
That blow feature is so awesome. I thought people were screwing with me. Wow.
No, I mean, who wants to click something 5 times? I mean, you can still click the button 5 times, but you can just blow it, put it in your pocket.
That's
That
a
is-
genius idea.
That's a cool feature because at some other devices like pods, if you were to do that, it would auto fire it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
that
Well, we're
is-
using a completely different, I mean, there's just an on-off switch, triggered by pressure. We're actually measuring at a very, very finite level.
Oh, Benji.
What the actual?
All right.
What's that?
Benji in chat is
Mhm.
it made for Nick salts? I mean, is it also?
You can use. I've used Nick salts in it. No problem. I when I was over in the UK, I bought some 20 milligram Nick salts, and they worked great in it. I had to kick it down to ultralight because we are doing something with the particle sizing that does make you keep a little more of the nicotine, a little more of the liquid. So you may feel like you're getting a much bigger mouthful of vapor than what you're exhaling. I mean, you're still exhaling, don't get me wrong. You still get a cloud coming out, but not a very big one. And it feels like you're getting more than that. But that's part of the technology is we wanted you to keep as much of this as you could because, the nicotine also plays, a strong role in keeping people off of cigarettes.
Right.
So if we can have them using lower nicotine levels, but keeping more of it, it keeps them from having to buy a 50 milligram nic to get the same effect. So we solved, or we tried to solve, we'll say, what people are solving through chemistry, we tried to solve through engineering.
Yeah. Nice.
So.
Real quick, thank you for the donation there, Mr. J. Riz. He says, because you guys rock and keep me informed every effing week. Well, there you go. We try our best.
Stainless steel.
So we got a little bit we got to take care of real quick because I don't want to go too far because I know Phil and Dimitri have their show going and I hate overlapping on shows, but real quick, we do have a business meeting to take care of real quick. And always Brad's Vapor holds this business meeting. So anytime you need anything vaping products, go check out Brad's Vapor and make sure you use coupon code ST10. You know what that'll do for you. So, as always, business meeting goes. You have to be at least 21 years of age and a U.S. resident. I tell you what, because I don't ever get to put Brian on the spot. Brian, can I get a business meeting number tonight?
You sure can. I'm going to set the number at 40.
40. Mark, have we got a
Meaning
40?
behind that.
The discount number, huh? Son of a bitch. Here we go. Number 40.
It's all about that 40.
Yep.
I didn't feel old, but after I went on the EVOLV website, I feel so old now. We don't have a 40. We have a 39. Come on, number 40. We got a 40. Winner is Dustin Stewart. Stewardist. STEWARDIST.
Wow, Mark can
Stewardess?
actually pronounce a word. That just shocked the hell out of me.
That is pretty shocking.
Anyway, congratulations there. All you need to do is contact me at stvape72@gmail.com. You need to send a photo ID with address and birth date, and we will get you taken care of. So, Brandon, I got a question for you real quick.
Sure.
I need you to come back on the show again in the near future.
Okay.
Because
I was going to ask where I could get an application to become a member of that. This was fine.
Because I feel like there's still a lot of questions I like to ask you, but we've kind of come to that point, and that's a good thing because I definitely would love to have you back on so we could talk some more.
Okay. I'd be happy to. I mean, seriously, I'd be happy to.
That would be awesome.
Someone did email me a question just now, and it's from Don. He wants to know, he just tried to order one and can't complete order since there's no shipping to Canada. Do you guys ship to Canada?
Oh, God, yeah. We're working on that right now. The problem with shipping to Canada is that shipping from the U.S. to Canada is extremely expensive. So tell him to go scream at one of his distributors to pick this thing up, because we have a ton of orders coming in right now that we can't fulfill for Canada. I may just open up Canada just to get them over there, because we've had a lot come in from Canada just in the last week. They get all the way to the end and then they realize we won't ship. So tell him, that is something we're looking at. I'm surprised that a Canadian distributor hasn't talked to us about it yet. So, but yeah, absolutely. Tell him I'm sorry. If you're listening, I'm sorry.
Well, I want to at least say this, and I think all the guys are probably in the same here. I want to appreciate you coming on tonight and what you've done overnighting these products for us to take a look at. And I think you got a big success here on your hands, brother. I mean, it's.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you guys for what you do. I mean, people don't realize how much time and effort it takes to do what you guys are doing right now. And,
thank you.
Definitely thank you. But yeah, it's awesome, man. So if you want to check one of these out, go over to the EVOLV site. He has them up right now. And if you're like, well, I guess I can say it for once. If you're everybody at the age of this panel, you're going to get $40 off your device, except for maybe Mike. I know Mike thinks he's still 21, but
39. I got to wait till next year to get that discount.
Oh, man. But man, I do appreciate you coming on. Also, Brian, I want to thank you for joining us too tonight. It's been awesome.
Pleasure. Thank you very much.
I couldn't have thought to have a better team on here and to be able to try this product, because we've all done pods for a long time. A lot of people are just getting sick of pods. But what you're trying to do is you're going after the new smoker. You're not really so much going after the veterans, the veteran vapors out there. But I will say this, as of being a veteran vapor, I still enjoy it. So,
yeah, I can enjoy this, definitely.
Yeah. So it'll go for anybody out there that's looking for it. If it's up your alley, take a look at it. So, well, folks, we've got to get out of here again because I am like stepping on somebody else's toes. But again, thank you, Brandon, for joining us. Hang around just for a minute.
Okay.
But we're going to get out of here. Don't forget, and I'm guessing, if I'm correct, Thursday night vape team. And then Friday, Mark's got a little show he does where he talks all kind of mad shit. And last but not least, you will see us all Sunday night. Vaping Bachelor, I did see your donation, but I forgot what it says. But thank you for the donation. And one other, Angel Gomez. I know you donated, and I forgot to read it because we got a little tied up. I apologize, but thank you for the donation. Folks, we will see y'all next Tuesday. And with that, we are going to do a smooth transition out of here. I'm going to show Mark. I've showed him for 5 years how to do this, and he's still.
I'm the one that taught you how to fucking do it.
You ain't taught me shit. Smooth transition out.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Good Lord. Mark, I'm gonna teach you how to do this one day. One day you are gonna learn.
Panel how to go live.
You ain't taught me.